Hi, my name is Kelly Hayes. My paper is entitled Economically Driven Changes in Alaska and the Effect This Had on the Physical and Mental Health of the Inupiat. Being a teacher, I assumed that I would be drawn to a topic that involved education. In completing the assignments during the semester, however, I was surprised that I was drawn to the health issues that we examined. I was amazed to learn of the issues faced by Alaska Natives and the disparity between the rates at which Alaska Natives suffered from certain ailments when compared to Westerners. It led me to question how these disparities came to be and what, if anything, was being done to correct them. In order to focus my topic, I chose to examine the health of the Inupiat, beginning with the contact of economically driven outsiders. Prior to contact, Alaska was a self-contained land that was virtually isolated due to its geographical location. This area was made up of a variety of groups, each unique with its own culture and set of beliefs. In the 18th century, the first outsiders arrived in Alaska. The native Alaskans and their land were exploited by these outsiders for their resources, the repercussions of which are still being felt by Alaska Natives to this day. Changes to the economy and the effects this had on the physical and mental health of the Alaska Inupiat are just some of the areas that have been drastically changed because of the course of events that occurred post-contact. The rate at which Native people suffer from health issues such as alcoholism, diabetes, and psychiatric problems are significantly higher than those of other ethnic groups. The Inupiat are located in northern Alaska. Due to their extreme northern location, the Inupiat were the last of the native groups in Alaska to have contact with Europeans and Americans. The first outside contact with the Inupiat came in the 18th century when Russian explorers came to the area. Russian fur traders proceeded to establish trading posts, but the Inupiat were largely left alone because of their lack of fur animals in the north. Inupiat live primarily along the coast of Alaska and as a result rely heavily on marine animals such as bowhead whales, beluga whales, bearded seals, and walruses for their survival. Not only are these animals important to their subsistent lifestyle, they are also a key feature to their cultural identity. Many of the Inupiat ceremonies revolved around hunting. A successful whale hunt was cause for great celebration in the community. Although marine animals like whales were valued by the Inupiat for their nutrition, Americans and Europeans valued them for monetary value. Whales were prized for their oils, baleen, and ambergris. While these items were used to fill the basic needs of life and for survival by Alaska Natives, these items could be used in the Western world to make such things as candles, lubricants, and many other items, bringing in large amounts of money for those who harvested them. Whalers were initially drawn to southern Alaska, where they hunted sperm whales, but eventually made their way to the Arctic Ocean and Beaufort Sea via the Bering Straits in the 1850s to follow the migration of the bowhead whales. It is widely believed that this contact with outsiders brought diseases that were previously unknown to Alaska. Tuberculosis, smallpox, and measles devastated villages, some with 50% of their population lost to illness. The prevalence of these diseases were so severe in Alaska that they reached infectious levels that were seldom seen anywhere else. A secondary effect of the overwhelming number of whaling vessels that converged on the Inupiat hunting grounds was that trading with the Russians and other whalers introduced alcohol to native Alaskans. Alcohol has become an increasingly devastating health issue in Alaska. In addition to there being high numbers of alcohol-related accidents resulting in death, illnesses that result from alcohol abuse include alcoholic liver disease, alcoholic-induced chronic pancreatitis, alcoholic psychosis, dependence syndrome, alcoholic cardiomyopathy, and acute alcohol poisoning. The prevalence of these diseases is among the highest in the nation. Following the decline of whaling, disease was so rampant in schools that were established by missionaries and the government in the earliest 20th century. The Inupiat had little choice in the matter and were coerced into sending their children to these types of schools. While attending the schools, children were forced to speak English and were completely cut off from their culture. When the children did return to their families, they had become disconnected from their communities and were often ill-equipped to deal with their traditional ways of living. Many embraced the Western lifestyle, which stands as a marked contrast from the Native Alaskan way of life. Following World War II, the population in Alaska grew significantly. Between the years of 1880 and 2000, the population increased from an estimated 33,000 to an incredible 625,000. Many military members who served in Alaska chose to stay and become residents of the Alaska Territory. The military buildup during the Cold War and the discovery of oil on the North Slope also contributed to the population boom. With this growth in population came the introduction of Western ways of living, including westernized foods. A decrease in the need for living a subsistent lifestyle, combined with the largely unhealthy nature of processed foods, allowed diabetes to become a major concern. The prevalence of type 2 diabetes in Alaska Natives has increased drastically over the last 30 years. Between the years of 1990 and 1997, the rates of diabetes increased by 29%. Low levels of activity and obesity are leading causes for diabetes. These factors can be attributed to a decrease in activity because of the lack of need to provide for themselves through a subsistence living. The accessibility the Inupiat have to the Western foods have also played a major role in the increasingly unhealthy and sedentary lifestyle of some. At the height of the Cold War, the United States greatly increased its defenses. Alaska was a prime location to place missiles because of their relative closeness to the USSR. Military installations were installed along the North Slope. While the aim of the government was to protect Americans, nuclear testing that was done had devastating effects on the region. The result of the nuclear contamination manifested itself in many ways. One way in particular was in that of the animals that Inupiat were consuming as part of their subsistence lifestyle. Animals such as seals and caribou, which make up a large portion of the Inupiat food supply, were discovered to have tumors and other deformities. Aside from the effects the nuclear waste had on local animals, a secondary and more serious side effect of the contamination is the rate in which people were succumbing to cancer in the Inupiat village of Point Hope. The cancer rate was attributed to the radioactive materials located nearby, and the effect those materials had on the food chain. When the native Alaskans live in that area, living a largely subsistence lifestyle, they were directly ingesting these materials, which caused a spike in the frequency of illnesses such as cancer. Mental health is also an area that has been significantly affected. The suicide rate of Alaska Native youth is 9 times higher than the suicide rate of youth in other parts of the country. This disproportionate number can be attributed to many factors, one of which is the rapid social disintegration caused by colonialism. Colonialism has affected young people's sense of self-conceptions and perceived choices, and consequently their behavioral health. Many Alaska Natives have a difficult time fitting in with their culture while also trying to live a westernized lifestyle. Although alcohol is banned in many villages, it is still being used. The combination of alcohol and depression can have deadly consequences. Between 1983 and 1984, 79% of suicides committed by Alaska Natives were committed by those who were found to have elevated blood alcohol levels. Native Alaskan women are particularly at risk of succumbing to these serious health issues. The number of women suffering from physical and mental illness greatly outnumbers those of men. Alaska Native women are approximately twice as likely to develop diabetes, chronic liver disease and cirrhosis, and commit suicide. Stress related to trauma, such as physical assault and abuse and discrimination, have been proven to lead to post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, HIV and AIDS, and alcohol use and dependence. Women are also at a higher risk for contracting sexually transmitted diseases, since white men are less likely to use protection when engaging in sexual actions with a Native Alaskan woman than with a white woman. Although many factors have contributed to the decline in the health of the Inupiat, efforts are being made to combat these serious issues. The International Circumpolar Surveillance System was established by the Arctic Investigations Program of the Centre for Disease Control and Prevention, together with the Health Canada's Bureau of Infectious Disease Laboratory Centre for Disease Control, now the Public Health Agency of Canada's Centre for Infectious Disease Prevention and Control. This system was created to aid in the tracking of outbreaks of diseases such as influenza, meningitis, and pneumonia. As a result of the surveillance system, areas where outbreaks of deadly diseases can be quickly identified and handled in an appropriate manner. Knowledge about the diseases and methods for treating them are also more easily shared now that this system is in place. This can be important when dealing with outbreaks in isolated areas where treatment options are either limited or not well known. Solutions to alcohol problems are also being investigated. In many places across the state, alcohol has been banned. There are some places that allow alcohol, but only if it's brought in from outside sources. Tax increases on alcohol have had a direct influence on alcohol-related mortality. Increased tax on beverage alcohol is presumed to raise the price to the consumer, who respond by purchasing and drinking less alcohol. Tax increases in both 1983 and 2011 saw decreases in the number of alcohol-related deaths in those years. Contact with outsiders changed the culture of Native Alaskans across the state, specifically the Inupiat people of northern Alaska. The repercussions of contact are still being felt by Native Alaskans to this day. A main effect that can be seen is the decline in the health of the Inupiat because of the course of events that occurred post-contact. The introduction of deadly diseases such as tuberculosis, influenza, and smallpox were all a direct result of contact with outsiders. The introduction of alcohol and an emphasis on Western lifestyles have also resulted in deadly consequences. Although these challenges are being met through the introduction of health reform, statewide and local laws, and education programs, there is still much work to be done to ensure the protection of these people so that they and their wonderful culture continue to live on. Thank you for listening to my paper today.